So you leave the body and you have ESP once you have an electric environment. The digital shrinks the electric ESP environment. I say the television, the analog media clones ESP. We're worried about cloning bodies, but we clone ESP with telephones and television and radio because you can be super anxious. You're everywhere at once simultaneously, and everybody's inside you and you're inside them. So that's the world of ESP as it was romanticized in the 19th century. The digital allows you to disconnect from the ESP. You can have your TV and radio shows taped and listen to when you want to. You're not inside the simultaneous effect of the cloned ESP analog media. So the digital creates not interconnectivity, it creates disconnectivity. So we fill it in with a lot of interaction, a lot of interactivity. So the tactile interplay has become the figure in what we experience in our technology because we've become disconnected totally due to the digital autonomy that brings in. So you voluntarily engage with the collective ESP when you want to. So what's Jon Stewart do? He watches on the Daily Show. He watches the analog part of the Android beam, broadcasts a bunch of news stories. Then he rips them apart and does meta-irony on them. He's editing them. He's showing how he's operating from a position of later technology chip body that can play with the imagery that the old TV body puts out. Now, more and more, any kid can do that. So they make fun of the clone ESP world from the digital, disconnected, voluntary ESP world, the autonomous, disconnected world. So that's been happening for 10 years. What has happened due to the digital landscape is you've lost everything. And the chemical body is just a ghettoized immersion. That's why hospitals don't do this anymore. They just pump chemicals into you, high-tech you, and have no respect of the effects of it on you. But people don't care because they're on the telephone, they're texting while waiting for the next injection from the doctor. They're more involved in the chip body. So as the chip body gets tinier and tinier and tinier, pretty soon I'll have a little thing here. I don't know if it'll be embedded, but it'll blossom holograms for me that I can interact with, okay? So that's coming. But we will remain in the problem of paying your rent. The financier visual space that money, the printed press medium money, is always there to bug you. If we get a new kind of energy system that doesn't die, eternal energy, more friction, no friction, more energy coming out to put in, then you're free from having to pay your rent. Because once you get the battery that gives you eternal shelter, you don't need to keep paying rent.
Cold fusion, if you will?
Yes, you know about cold fusion.
Well, I do know about cold fusion, but I also know about the law of thermodynamics. I know that currently they say it's not possible.
Well, why wouldn't they?
Just saying.
Just saying. The chemical body said, I'm just saying, it can't happen.
Just repeating, repeating that rhetoric.
Here's an interesting thing. As the technology massages us, we get new ideas collectively, we get new inventions. Cold fusion is here in the digital landscape. 24/7, and it doesn't cost much, you can interact with media. You didn't have that when you had just books. Read the book, you finish, you put it down, wait for another book to show up. 3 weeks later, the old joke, George Jefferson says, we haven't heard from Ben Franklin in a year, we better write him a letter. That's what was said in the 1790s or 70s when he was in Paris.
It takes like 3 months for a letter to get there.
Yeah. We haven't heard from a year. We better write a letter.
6 months round trip or something.
Yeah. Now, I haven't heard from Billy in 10 seconds. Text, where are you, Billy? And Billy gets back to you,
She hasn't called.
Yeah. So, the amazing interactivity and frictionless reality of instant information, relatively inexpensive once you plug in. That's miming, in software terms, the coming hardware battery of cold fusion. So the effects of cold fusion are here in software terms already. Just like anti-gravity vehicles will show up, because you are living anti-gravity when you're on the phone. I have floated to Japan, and Japan has floated to me, and we're interacting. That's what's happened for 100 years. So that's why, forget it, that artist who painted people in the 20s, floating people. Chirico or something. You know that artist?
I don't think I'm familiar with this work.
Anyway, it's not a floating image. What'd you say?
I don't think I'm familiar with that work.
Chirico.
Chirico.
Anyways, he often painted civilized industrial people floating above cities. He was describing unconsciously defective telephones. So anti-gravity's been here as a meme since fantasizing people for about 100 years, because we've been technically living in the anti-gravity experience in terms of our brain's experience in software technology, and it'll show up in hardware technology inevitably. Most people think they're abducted by it already. Right? UFOs. Abductees.
I heard some stories.
Yeah. They're just trying to translate into chemical body terms the fact that they've been abducted for most of the century by electric media, electric environments that go inside us. When you're on the phone, I'm not talking to your ear, and you're not talking to you're inside my head, and I'm inside your head. You bypass the skin, the surface structure of your body, the chemical body. You go inside, and we're all inside each other. That's what James Joyce wrote a book, Spinning His Wake, describing everybody being inside each other's intestines. Philip K. Dick tried to approximate that with his books, but he didn't see the present as much as Joyce did, or McLuhan, or Burroughs. Burroughs probably did it better. Burroughs is a replay of Spinning His Wake. Naked Lunch.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, you're inside each other's insides. It's all, you can read quotes. He's talking about each other eating each other, digesting each other, cannibalistic. He's describing the effect, the electric effect. I don't know how conscious he is of it, but he did it. But when he met McLuhan explained to him what he was doing. He goes, oh, that's right. McLuhan was conscious about it before. Burroughs had to write himself into the understanding. McLuhan read himself into the understanding by doing the necessary research, meeting Wyndham Lewis, who turned him on to one of the greatest artists of the 20th century that you haven't heard of, that you should hear of. Wyndham Lewis taught him what Joyce meant, and then he looked into Joyce and figured it out, thanks to Wyndham Lewis. So, next point.